Hi folks, Dave Schmidt here. Hey, it's December 31st, and as you can see, I'm in a very different position today. Actually, I'm still out in the front yard of my home here in Sedona, and normally I'm sitting in that chair right over there where you see a lot of the stuff where you have to excuse me because the snow comes down and hits my nose. But, I wanted to do today's video outside, so I'm outside. I wanted to do this. It's really interesting for us here in Sedona. We do get snow here periodically, but not a lot. We're at about 4,300 feet elevation here, in contrast to Phoenix, which is 2 hours south of me. That's only 1,100 feet of elevation. But if I go 35 miles north of Flagstaff, it's at 7,000 feet elevation. So we do get cold nights here in the winter. But it's interesting because it's been snowing all day today. We got about probably 5 or 6 inches already. And there was a friend of mine that was talking with a friend of hers who's lived here for 20 years, and she says she's never seen this much snow before. Well, December 31st, the end of the year. This has been one of the most interesting years in my life. But before I start, I got to take it back. I got to go back a little bit. I got to fill in a couple of administrative announcements. First of all, we've already posted for the Boston workshop on January 17th. And I would encourage you to get signed up because in the first day alone, we've already filled half of our seating capacity. So if you want to be at Boston on January 17th, I would encourage you to get signed up because it's pretty obvious that we're going to sell out. And yes, I will be able to do another workshop on January 31st here in Sedona. And folks, the odds are about 99% we're not going to have snow on January 31st in Sedona because we only get snow about once or twice a year. And we're getting our decades worth today. Now, why am I saying that though? Because Charlotte and I had been talking with the ambassador earlier today. We're going back to China. And as of now, tentatively, we will be going back to China right after the Sedona workshop. And I don't know when we will be able to do another one. It may be 1 month. It could be 7 months out because of what's developing there. But we are going back to China right after. And that's the tentative schedule as of now. Yes, they have to work through and finalize all of that. But as of now, the tentative schedule, we're going back to China right after our January 31st workshop here in Sedona. This is my home. I love it here. I always want to invite you to come. Sedona is a tourist city. As I've said, there's only about 20,000 people that live here year-round. And with all the vacation homes, there's maybe 40, 50,000 people. But we get over 4 million visitors a year that come through Sedona because it's such a wonderful place. It's a magical place. It's one of the most beautiful places here in the United States. A unique type of a high desert red rock mountain country that doesn't exist not only anywhere in the United States, if not almost anywhere in the whole Western Hemisphere, because they already have done their work and they say what is called the vortex energy here in Sedona is higher than anywhere else in the whole Western Hemisphere. And it brings a unique experience not only to all the beauty that is here. So the last day of the year, 2014, as we're getting ready to move into another year. This has been, for me personally, one of the biggest years of change in my life. And it's been a magical year and a wonderful year. Now, what do I mean by that? Charlotte and I have come and we've understood, and she uses this term, it's called bold faith. And this really has been a year for us of stepping into faith and to understanding what that really means. And then it's not just a neat little religious term that we kind of throw around because it sounds good. No, we're getting to experience how trusting, believing, having an inner sense of knowing where it takes you and how it opens doors for you and how life begins to develop for you. Let me take a step back. 13, 14 months ago, I was struggling financially. You've heard my story about where I had come from. I had just started doing the writing, and I was doing a little bit, of what was called the weekly radio program. I maybe had 1,000, 1,500 people each week that were listening to it. But there was something else that was going on, because you've heard me say that within myself, I went through about 4 to 5 years that the most important thing in my life was what was I called the inner healing, the clearing, the releasing of all the old stuff in my life that I was attached to, letting go of drama attachments to relationships, letting go of drama attachments to success, letting go of drama attachments around money. And I had come to a point of understanding how to do that and how that works. And I could recognize when this old stuff would come up because people were pushing my buttons and they'd get mad and angry. Or I would try to go to bed at night and, when you lay down to sleep and your mind begins to be a little quiet, and all of a sudden the drama thoughts of those people that are pushing your buttons, they just start playing, and the voice in your mind, and you're arguing with them and you're fighting with them and you're wanting to say, get out of my life. You have that kind of stuff. But what I had done is I had learned how to heal that. And I call it the forgiveness process. And I understood and discovered the real power of forgiveness. And I've shared this in the workshops. And you would feel the change. I would feel the healing. And it was so refreshing because I realized where I was debating and arguing with that person in my thoughts, it was becoming less and less. And then it was about 1 year ago. It was the second week in January of this year, 2014. There was one night that I laid down to go to bed. And all of a sudden I realized I was at peace. There was a peacefulness that was there. I wasn't arguing and fighting with two people that were really pressing my buttons. And I went inside and I started listening, and I heard what I call the voice of the Holy Spirit. That's how it is for me. And that voice came so clearly and directly and says, you're done. You've done your work. Now, that doesn't mean I still have some small minor things here or there. Of course I do. But the drama, the major drama, was done. And I had always understood, and I had been taught, and you've heard that, life is meant to be abundant. Life is meant to be a generous flow. Life is meant to have for us what is called a flow of ease. And it was interesting because it was about 2 weeks later, Charlotte and I met. And our life began to take off with a flow of ease. We met on February 2nd. And then the next thing you know, I had scheduled my first workshop in Dallas on March 23rd. Those things began to flow. Things began to develop. I began to get a sense of direction. I had stepped into a period of time working with another individual who I had thought was going to be funding some of these private projects on the RVGCR because I had the assurance it was the family that was funding that, and I'd asked that and later found out that that didn't happen. But there was something about stepping into faith and trusting, stepping into where I was at the moment with the information I had at that time. And inside there was a sense of knowing this is the path you're on. This is the direction you're supposed to be taking. This is where you're supposed to be going. And you could trust that. Could I put my finger on something that was absolutely solid and say the RV is going to happen at this date, this time, and this is what the rate's going to be? No, not a bit. I couldn't put a finger on that. But I could have a sense of knowing that something was developing. And after a while, I've asked this question probably 100 times, follow the money. Who's going to pay for this whole RV? Where are you going to get the money? And as I continued on the journey, I began to learn and grow and understand what was taking place and how it was unfolding. And then, in the first week in July, I did one of my weekly programs, and I stepped out on faith and said, this is something that is of my opinion. And I said, don't expect the RVGCR to be happening in the way that the others are saying. And I also said that it may be that it's only going to come in at a very lower amount, or that they will only basically do an RV with the lower denominational currencies of the Iraqi dinar. And I stepped out on a faith in saying that. But there was something inside of me that was saying, this is okay. This is a statement of truth. This is what you can step into. Now, what I mean by the statement of truth, not necessarily that was going to happen that way exactly, but it was a statement of where it was developing and what was a very high probability in contrast to what a lot of the others were saying. And it was the next day I was contacted by a representative of the Dragon family. And they said, your statements that you said last night were right on, and we would like to start a communication with you. And that's been for the last 6 months. But you see, I had been saying for over 3 years that the only place on this planet that kind of money exists is with the family. Because I knew about the real history behind all of that. You know, I used to be a state senator. I spent 20 years of my life in politics. And it was during my years when I was an elected official. I discovered how government lies, steals, and cheats and doesn't tell you the truth. And I also began to realize if you really want to know what the truth is, always follow the money. Because it's the power of money that people use the power of money to dominate others, to control others, to do what they want to do. And that we end up becoming basically in a form of financial slavery to them. And as I began to understand and discover that, I also knew I could carry that over to what I was learning here. And that what really was appearing to us, of what was being presented to us, what we were taught in our schools, how we think our government works, what the media was presenting to us, it was all just an illusion. And there was other stuff that was going on truly behind the scenes by the power and the controllers called the cabal. And you've been hearing me say there will not be an RVGCR until the cabal is neutered. Through this whole time has been the growth and the steps of development of what I call the journey of faith. Now, could you ask me today, is there absolutely one really hard, dominant thing I could put my finger on? No, not yet. I did think I was going to get something on the recent trip to Hong Kong, but you heard in the last couple of weeks is that the ambassador himself was not able to come because of direct manipulative interference that kept another associate from contacting with him to be able to make the flight that was there. Now, that might develop at a later time. But still, it took Charlotte and I into another very, very deep step of what we call going down the rabbit hole, of understanding what really goes on, how things really work, and what is really developing in the financial system of this world. A lot of people think I'm crazy. Well, they thought I was crazy when I was a senator, so that doesn't really bother me. But you wouldn't be listening to this if you did not understand what was there. You would not be listening to this if you did not have an essence of faith within yourself. You wouldn't be trusting of stepping out and becoming the black sheep of your family and almost everybody thinking that you're crazy, that something was going to happen. Because here's what's happening. This is what I teach in the workshops. We are in the midst of a huge shift and change in what I call the awareness, the awakening up, or the consciousness of the human race. We're beginning to wake up. Now, the cabal has manipulated, controlled, and kept us in forms of financial slavery for centuries. And you want to know what their greatest fear is? You and I waking up. You and I beginning to know the truth. Because when we wake up and we begin to know the truth, we begin to create the shift and change that we want to come about. All the way through history, when there are major shifts and change, they always start with a small group of people at the grassroots level that have this great belief and faith that something's going to happen. There's going to be a shift. There's going to be a change. They anticipate the newness coming. They anticipate something else taking place. All the way through. It always starts with a system of trusting and believing and knowing and acknowledging and taking steps of action when you can't put your finger on anything that's absolute. If you wait for the absolute, it never comes. Now, why is that? You've heard me talk about in some of the past newsletters about this whole new science that's developing called the science of memetics, memes. What are memes? Memes are the little energy particles that come out from our minds, our brains, from our thoughts. And it's very similar to cell phone communications. We pick up on this from each other. The key is our memes are what create the experiences that we have throughout our daily lives. Because the world we live in is not truly a physical world. Albert Einstein said that. He said your physical world is a delusion, not an illusion. It's a delusion and it's not real. The real world is the unseen world because it's back to, you've heard me say that this hand, yeah, it feels physical, but technically in reality it's not, because if you put it under an electron microscope, it's 99.9% space, which means it's nothing but energy, and that's what everything in this world is. We live in a world where everything is energy, and memes are the energy particles of our thoughts, and as those energy particles go out, they actually create the circumstances and the situations. But not only that, memes are what gives substance to the wave energy and turns it into particles at the quantum level, which is below the level of the atom, that produces the items that seem to have substance or physicalness to us. Everything that is physical first starts in the non-physical world. All the events that we experience first start in the etheric world, the unseen world, in the energy of our thoughts. And it's the energy of our thoughts that brings it from the etheric, unseen world into the physical, real, experienced world. Even the Apostle Paul understood this, where there's a verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 where he says, we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. Because the things that are seen are temporary, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Einstein said, your physical world is not real. Nikola Tesla, he basically said the same thing. These guys understood that over 100 years ago. We're just starting to understand that. And the more we move into that, the more we get to create and bring about the experiences of the world we want. But it always starts as a journey of faith. I could go on and on about Bible verses about faith. As you know, I'm a seminary graduate. I have a master's degree in biblical studies. But there's some really great quotes that had come from Jesus in the Gospels. It says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. All things are possible for anyone who believes. Now, why am I using the word believe instead of the word faith? Because, see, in the New Testament, in the original language of the Greek that is there, the word faith and the word belief, they're both the same exact word. The only difference is one is the verb and the other is the noun. Faith is the noun. Believe is the verb. It's the action of believing that brings about the energy of faith that then gives substance to the energy particles that brings about the experiences or the things that we want. Hebrews 11, verse 1. Faith is the substance, the energy particles of things that are hoped for, that things that you do not see. The evidence. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay, the evidence of the things that you do not see. See, faith is what brings things from the unseen world of hope, of joy, of happiness, of vision, of believing into becoming a reality. This is a journey of faith, folks. Now, let me share a few other things. Faith does not exist in negative comments. Faith does not exist where there's attacking. Faith does not exist where there's deep separation and division amongst us as people. Faith does not exist where there's anxiety. Faith does not exist where there is fear. All of those are very low energy, low vibrational memes. Faith exists in the high vibrational memes. Or let me just take a step back. Yeah, there is faith in the low energy stuff if that's what you want. Because your faith in that is what produces what you get. If you like being miserable, if you like being angry, if you like being judgmental and critical, then keep putting your faith in the fact that none of this is going to happen. Or it's not going to happen the way that you want it to. Put your faith in trust, in believing, in hoping, in being positive. Start developing those things in your life. Move into the energy of those thoughts. Get in touch with all of the energy that is around you, the energy of your thoughts and your emotions, because they will always tell you what you're thinking and what you're producing. Get in touch with that, and faith begins to grow. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Faith is the substance of the memes of our thoughts. It brings it about. And it brings about the things that are not seen and brings them into the seen and physical world. Read through the Gospels. Look at the miracles that Jesus did. If you notice, he always said it was their faith that brought it about. It wasn't just him choosing to do a miracle. It was him aligning with the energy of their faith. In fact, he said faith was something that was so powerful and strong that he could see it. He says he could see the faith in them. There's another issue of one of the stories where Jesus is amongst the crowds and the people, and he's going through the city. And at that point in time, he had become pretty popular. It was like a rock musician walking into the halls of a high school. Everybody's thronging around him. Everybody's bumping, pushing, shoving, wanting to touch him, wanting to be around him. And he makes this statement, "Who touched me?" And you want to say, "Jesus, what do you mean who touched you? Come on, they're all around you. They're bumping into you." And he said, "No." And in the old King James term, he says, "I felt virtue come out of me." He felt an energy release and an energy flow that went to someone else. And it went to this woman who in the old King James says it would had an issue of blood. In essence, she was having a hemorrhaging problem, is what it was. And she was saying, if I could just get around him, because he's the man who's the healer. If I could just be with him, if I could just be close to him. And in the Bible it says, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I know that I would be healed. And that's exactly what happened. There was a healing energy of release. You see, it was the combination of her sense of knowing, of trusting, and of believing, and the determination around that to get in touch with him who was the source of that brought the healing. It brought what is there. And it's really interesting, in that verse, in the original language of the New Testament Greek, it's not just, he says, "Woman, your faith has healed you." But that word for healed could be translated in 3 different ways, and they would all be correct. He could say, "Woman, your faith has healed you." Another translation says, "Woman, your faith has saved you." And another translation says, "Woman, your faith has made you whole." What took place? A freedom, a healing, a salvation, a release from a position of bondage into a position of health and wholeness and abundance. That's what faith does. Other verses where I said again, without faith it's impossible to please God. All of this that's taking place for us has been a journey of faith. This whole year has been a journey of faith for Charlotte and I. And it's been a wonderful experience. We anticipate what's coming next. We've come to the point where we don't even necessarily try to figure out what's happening because it just continues to find us. All the doors that have opened, they've come to us. We haven't tried to pry them open. We haven't been trying to make any of this stuff happen. It just finds us. It finds us because we have a very strong sense of knowing that this is a divine assignment for us and it's our time. But we did all the work. We let go of all the drama around success and money and relationships and had come to the point of being just peaceful right where we are. And when we were there, that's when the doors opened and what I call the flow of ease began to take place in our lives. Tomorrow's a new day. In fact, it's already 2015 in Hong Kong. I was talking with the ambassador earlier, and it's past New Year's in Hong Kong. And where he is in Europe, I think it's at about another hour it's going to be the New Year. We're always the last ones here in the United States to experience that as it goes around the world. But a new day, a new year. A new year where I'm absolutely believing that the journey of faith that you're on with us, is going to move us, and we're going to start seeing things coming into reality, into existence. Things that we can put the finger on and know that it's there. Join me this year on the new year, on the new journey. Join us as we continue on this journey of faith. Let faith grow and develop within you. Keep yourself positive and strong. Keep yourself looking and hoping for what is going to come your way. I can't tell you the timing and all that. But part of it is letting go of the urgency and the need to know. Continue to live your life as you would on a normal basis and just be in that flow of ease. And what Eckhart Tolle said in his book, The Power of Now, the now moment, right here, right now. And to not let your minds be so dominated about worry and anxiety of when is it going to happen or what's going to be and how's it going to develop and who's saying the truth and who isn't and this person's right and that one or isn't. Let go of all that stuff. There's no need to get into all the drama around all of that. I've gone down deep enough down this rabbit hole. I could say a lot of things about a lot of others, but I just don't. Because in the end, it doesn't make any difference, because in the end, it is what is, and it's going to be what's going to be, and it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And in the moment, I'm loving the journey of faith. And Charla's there with me, and we're enjoying this journey of faith. And I'm enjoying this snow. It's amazing. Coming down slightly, continues here. I mean, you're seeing a little bit of it, but I'm not getting anywhere near the full volume because it's standing under the tree. But December 31st, it's time to reflect back. Has your year been? And what do you want for this new and coming year? This is the year that we get to see funds released for the projects. This is the year that we get to move in a sense of abundance for all of us. It's a year that could also bring with it some very big climactic change, because sometimes as new things come into existence, old things have to kind of be dismantled and done away with. And we're beginning to see some of the transition on that, where I'm saying is that the cabal is showing signs that they're being neutered. I've shared some of that recently with you on my Facebook page, okay? Wow. Love all of you. Would love to see you in Boston and in Sedona. Be praying for Charla and I, as in February we're heading back to China, and we'll begin to see some great new developments there, okay? Have an absolutely wonderful upcoming 2015. Thank you. Love all of you. Okay, bye-bye.